you own it. Let every mile bring a smile, yeah.
Welcome back to the Road of Life podcast. We have an amazing episode this time. We've got two of our favorite people on planet Earth, Greg and Cayla Kimble.
Woo!
Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here, guys.
So this is our first episode bringing a guest on.
That's right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, very exciting.
So we're honored that Greg and Cayla are going to be our first guests, and actually this is kind of a part two of a previous conversation. So for those of you who aren't aware, part one was on the Final Percent podcast. So if you want to catch that, go there, and always subscribe. Greg is always on there every week. Massive value. He's a great mindset coach, mindset, life, business, whatever you need, he's got. So go over there and subscribe, like, comment, and give him some love.
Oh, thank you.
The second part of the conversation was Greg asked us, we had just left our corporate lives, and he asked us, what was that moment where you were faced with a decision of like, did you guys just mess up leaving your corporate life, and like you're in this entrepreneurial journey, and stuff's getting hard and storms are brewing, and he's like, what was that moment for you? So we're gonna talk a little bit about what that moment was, but
for those of you who remember network television, they used to do cliffhangers. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. We're gonna get to that, but first we thought we'd have a conversation with Greg and Cayla, and then we'll definitely circle back and wrap that conversation up. So guys, thanks so much for being on.
Literally anytime. Anytime.
So happy.
Yeah. So do you want to get kicked off?
Sure.
Do you want me to? You want to keep rolling?
You keep rolling. Yeah.
Okay.
Meredith is always sure. I have no idea what I'm about to say, but yes. Love it.
Say yes and stay yes, right?
Yep.
Say yes. You never know where you'll end up. Life is adventure.
So our podcast has typically been us just shooting the breeze and just talking about subject matters that kind of pop into our brain that given week. But this week we've got guests, so we thought we would dive into relationships, since that's our main focus in our coaching world. So we thought we'd throw a couple relationship type questions, because you guys are on your journey. You're married. You're obviously in business together, and just kind of share with folks a little bit about your guys' journey and what you guys are up to. So give us the Coles Notes version, because of how you guys met, because I think it's an interesting story that will set the foundation for some of these other questions that come up.
So do you want to?
I'll start.
All right.
And you can interject.
All right.
You always do. But he makes it 10 times better, let me tell you. So he was up in Colorado. I was working on music in Arizona. I was working for a bank at the time and just trying to somehow find my way in the music industry. So I was singing and recording at this guy's house, my old producer, and was not going super great. So we weren't really making a lot of progress. I didn't feel like it was a good fit. And then he started developing feelings for me, made it very awkward when I was trying to just really focus on my career and myself and try to break into the music industry. And then insert my good friend Austin Yule, who ends up the best man
at our wedding.
Yeah. He and I became friends.
Spoiler.
And he was actually working with Greg up at his studio, working on an album with him in Colorado. And I showed him a song I was working on, and I was like, I really need some help on this song. Can you give me some pointers, or just give me some ideas we can add in? And he's like, try this. But what you really need to do is meet my producer, Greg, because he could really work some wonders with the song. And I think he'll love your voice and yada, yada, yada. So I'm like, cool. I want to meet everybody in the industry. Like, let's make this happen. And so sent him one of my songs, and then he messaged me and was like, hey, I love what you got. This song is really cool. I love to see what you got in person. I'm actually going to be in Phoenix on business next weekend. Let's meet up. And I'm like, sweet, this big music producer. Like, oh, so cool. I get to do that and meet him and
Okay,
stuff.
you did the hair thing.
And we meet, and he is awesome. We hit it off. We're like immediately best friends. We go karaokeing, and he decides to get up on stage and sing Me and Mrs. Jones. And, you know, I was very green in the industry at the time. And my old producer could not sing. He was, you know, good engineer, and, you know, he would produce the music and stuff, but he was not an artist by any stretch. And so I, you know, being so naive at the time, thought, no, producers are also singers, really, right? Like that I worked with, right? And so Greg starts singing Me and Mrs. Jones. And I remember being in a serious conversation with Austin about whatever. And I like completely ignore him, and I pan to the left, and I start staring at Greg, and he's like, hello, like what? And I'm like, you didn't tell me he could sing. He's like, yeah, I did. I totally told you he could. You didn't tell me he could sing like that. Like that is different. Like there's levels to this. I'm just saying. So then we, you know, talk even more, and I'm just have so many more questions about the music industry, blah, 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 blah. And then, you know, he said before he kind of started falling in love with me, I was in denial.
It wasn't kind of. I saw her and I was head over heels.
And I just knew that though, that there was something there. Like I wanted to help. We had conversations about vision and goals for his company and where he wanted to take it. And I was like, I can contribute. Like, I want to help you build this thing and turn it into something that changes the industry across the world. And I was so excited and passionate about it that I literally just dropped everything. I quit my job, moved to Colorado, like pretty quickly. Like that was over the span of a few months.
It was like 9 months.
Where all of that, well, from when I first met you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But when I made the decision, it was like within a couple months I was in Colorado. And, you know, funny, fast forward to, you know, that's when I also started developing feelings for him and whatnot. But we joke because I talk often about my old producer, and I didn't want to be in a relationship with a producer. Fast forward to my husband and father of my child.
I can close.
He's better at closing deals, man. I'm just saying it worked out really well. So anything you want to add to the story?
I think that was good. Okay. I think the only thing I would add that I love, I think it was one of my favorite Cayla stories because I still use it to this day. And it was, you know, back when people would ask you, you know, are you in love with him when you were moving? You're like, no, not yet. I don't think so. It's not like that. And then you said there's 3 words that are more powerful than I love you. And that's, I just know. And I think that's, you know, one of the reasons why we're cut from the same cloth is like, sometimes when you don't know, they're like, why are you doing this? I don't know. I just know I need to. Mm-hmm. Like, why do you want to marry Cayla? I don't know. I just know. Why are you going to go, you know, be an entrepreneur, do the this, do the that, whatever it is, it's an, I just know. And I think, you know, we always say that those 3 words are more powerful than I love you. And I learned that from Cayla. So
yeah, I remember that moment was extremely powerful for me. And it was a big groundbreaking moment in my life at that point, as I was at my aunt's house. Because I was staying there and then going to the studio when I came up to visit him before things really materialized and before I finally moved. And I had some great experiences working with him at the studio, and things were just clicking and vibing and working well. And I had all these ideas, and I just knew that was the next step for me in the trajectory of my life. But I was so scared because I was leaving a comfortable job. I had all my friends and family, like huge family, you know, back in Arizona. It's where I grew up. It's all I ever knew.
When she says huge, like, she's not kidding. Like, this is the biggest family I've ever.
My dad has 6 siblings and they all have kids, and it's just like huge cousins.
It's a big family.
It's a big family. Yeah. And most of them live there. And I remember sitting in the room I was staying in, and I broke down. I started crying, and not because I didn't want to move. It was that groundbreaking for me. And it was just a lot of emotions to process all at the same time, as I knew that was my destiny, but I had to say goodbye to a huge, huge, huge part of what made me and things that I loved. But I was willing to make that sacrifice and take that jump. and build a parachute on the way down and figure it out as I went. But it was the best decision I ever made, because now look at the life that I have now. And I have Conrad, and I have, KMG and the Final Percent, and you, and all these amazing things that we've been able to build together. And it's all, and that's why I say, like, I'll look at him and I'll be like, man, I'm glad I jumped.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I jumped.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, part of our thing is, like, we always say that, I'm the kite, she's the anchor. Because, like, if I didn't have her grounding me and holding me down, like, I would just fly away. Like, I have a lot of dreams, and I'm very good at what I do, but it's like, I talk a lot about how you have to have strategy and structure, and strategy is kind of a synonym for creativity. Creativity is what supercharges the world. Like, imagine watching a movie with no music, like little things like that. It's a completely different movie. And the thing is what tends to happen is creative people or strategic people want more creative people because it's their comfort. And then structured people want more structured people because it's their comfort. But if you look at any incredible, like, business or relationship or whatever it is, it's, my camera is freaking out. You look at it and it's the supercharge. So Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, Steve Wozniak was the structure, Steve Jobs was the strategy. And you have these, it makes everything supercharged and exponential. And I don't think I unlocked my potential or even realized who I wanted to be. Not even who I could be, but literally I didn't realize who I wanted to be until I got supercharged by Cayla. Because, I mean, she gave me,
and same.
And and that's the thing, like, we talk about it all the time. It's just, it makes everything better.
Yeah, you have to find that good blend of strategy and structure. And we're great at both, but he thrives in strategy, I thrive in structure. So the combo of all of that just makes things.
And I found that, and we talked about it on the TFP one. She gave a whole, like, dissertation on what a morning routine was. I didn't care about what a morning routine was. She broke it down in like 90 minutes at one of our summits.
I opened up my board, like, I got super vulnerable and showed him exactly, like, what I do every morning, and, like, down to the T.
Like, she blew my mind. I was like, I didn't even know structure like that existed. Number one,
about it coming soon.
And I was like, it literally blew my mind. But she also delivered it and helped people understand why it was a superpower, why you chose certain things. And she broke down her Trello board and all. And I was, like, sitting there, like, as an absolute student in our conference, because she was just like, that's like, I was like watching Wonder Woman on stage. It was unbelievable. She was a freaking
structure
superhero.
queen.
Facts. Facts.
This is why we get along. So.
I have one of those as
well. You need one.
Yeah, it's there. Like, the structure, like, it just, it's.
But you need both.
Oh, that's you need both. But that's the thing. There's a reason why structured people usually will end up, like, mid-level management. They're always going to end up making six figures. Like, structured people are always going to be okay. Creative people, if they stay with just creative people, they're either crazy rich or crazy poor. There's a reason they call it the starving artist. Yeah. And so it's just like creative and strategic people really need the structure. They really do. And the structured people are always going to be okay, but they're supercharged by the creativity. And so that's one of the things, like, just having her come into my life and ground me. And, like, we often joke, like, I'm basically always running things at red line, ready to go over the cliff. And then she will grab the reins and pull it before we go over. So thank you for that, by the way. I appreciate that.
I got you.
So you've got a yin and yang kind of relationship going where you kind of complement each other really well. Aside from that, because obviously that's super important, what are, like, one or two things that each of you think because you guys have an amazing marriage. Like we've seen it up close for the last few years now. You guys get along so well, and you've got so many hats, kind of like we do.
Yeah.
You've got the parenting, the marriedpreneur, the business, best friends, all of that. So what are like one or two key things that you attribute to why you guys work so well together in all those aspects?
First thing that comes to mind for me is I respect him like crazy in all areas of life. And I think having our friendship first as the foundation of our relationship, this is my opinion on relationships, made all the difference in giving us the strength and stability we needed to endure, because we were friends. So we have so many similar interests and things that just kind of naturally aligned because we gravitated to each other on a friendship level first. And then the romance came later, and it just continued to strengthen and deepen the relationship even more. But I mean, I started respecting you as a musician and a businessman first. And then I, grew to respect you as a boyfriend, fiance, husband, father, all the things. And I think for me, at least, those are some of the biggest pieces that made it what it is for me today.
I think for me, we do this weird thing in our relationship that I don't hear a lot of other couples do, is we will tell each other that we like each other.
Yeah.
Like so many people are like, hey, I love you. But it's like, we like actually like each other.
You can love someone and not really like being around them all the time. Like we always joke and say, like,
very true.
Anytime he goes off with the boys or does anything, he's like, just for the record, like, you're always invited to these things. Like, we always want to be around each other all the time.
I call her bro more than my bros. Like, she's legit my best friend.
He does call me bro.
Or I'll look at her, I'll be like, dude, what are you talking about? And she's like, okay, whatever. Like, that's my
just part of our vernacular, man. But, like it just works.
Yeah, I love her. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize that at so many levels, those are different feelings. Those, like, liking and loving someone is different. And loving, I think people hide behind love a little too much because they'll give people like weird passes, but and it's just like, but I love them, so it's just, I gotta put up with it. And when you really have a friend, you can communicate on that level and just be like, hey, like, what did you mean by that? Like, this is how I'm taking it, and I don't think that's how you mean it. Like, that's like a friend conversation. It's like, I like who she is I love who she is as a mom, but I also like who she is as a mom. I like who she is as a friend. I like who she is as a person. We were at date night the other, it was 2 nights ago, Wednesday. And we spent the first hour just talking about all the different books that we've read, that like basically comparing notes and like, oh, you have to, and I wish I would have listened to her sooner, because she was telling me about The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest. And I was like,
Meredith knows.
I was like, I've read it 4 times now.
It's one of my favorite books of all time.
It's groundbreaking, and everybody needs to read it. It's so good. And the other thing that I realized, I think 5 or 4 out of the 5 books that I always recommend people are by women. Because Multipliers by Liz Wiseman, unbelievable book. Mindset by Carol Dweck, unbelievable book.
Mel Robbins,
Brene Brown. Like, it's just, there's this insight that I think, unfortunately, with the way that we have kind of evolved as society, where we get kind of tunnel vision from like this one perspective. And I'm like, one of the things that I've said for a really long time is I'm always looking for insight, not necessarily agreement. And so even if I don't agree with what Cayla is trying to tell me, I always want to know what she's talking about, why she's talking about it, where it came from, because like, it might change my mindset, might change my opinion. And even if it doesn't, like, there's been so many times where, and we don't even do the whole, let's just agree to disagree. Like, we're just like, oh, that's your point of view. Cool. This is my point of view. And then we stay in the same house. We're still just as in love. Like, I don't have to make you think what I think for me to like you. Like, what you guys said, I think is probably the best way. We really feel a sense of belonging in the family. Neither one of us are ever trying to fit in. Like, she's never trying to fit in to be around me. I'm not trying to fit in to, like, we have, like, you complete me.
For a second there, I was like, are you being dead serious? You're ridiculous. I know you are, but anyway, I love you so much.
But it's just like, we belong to this family. We belong to each other. And I never want her to try to fit in. Like, there's so many times where she'll tell me, like, wow, you're nuts. Have fun. Like, hope it all works out.
Being authentically ourselves.
Yeah.
Is very
I think that's the most powerful concept, and it comes from Brene Brown, the way I've adopted it, and we touched on it briefly in the first part of this episode of the TFP side. But to your point, belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are.
Yeah.
The minute you try and change that, you're trying to fit in, and fitting in doesn't give you the sense of belonging. And we're all looking for a sense of belonging. We all want to feel like we belong somewhere with someone in some group in some place. And if you try and hide part of yourself, you never, ever actually get that. And so to me, that's like, it was just such a sort of groundbreaking concept for me that, yeah, we all want to belong. And the only way to belong is to actually be yourself. It's the only thing you have to do. But it's the hardest, scariest thing you're probably ever going to do. And so being able to do that with each other is what creates that belonging together.
Yep. And also goes back to vulnerability.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying it all circles back to vulnerability. So it's all connected.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Actually, all right. My super quick story. When I realized I was messing up on vulnerability with her, and she is about to be like, I cannot believe that you're about to say this on a podcast, but in the interest of vulnerability, we're going there. We're going there. I still remember the first time when I realized I was messed up in the head and didn't realize it in our marriage. We had decided, and I think this was probably 2.5, 3 years ago, we decided to take a bath together. And I remember not wanting to get naked in front of her. And so much so that I thought that it would be a really good idea. I thought that it would be a really good idea for me to just hide really quickly. So I'm going to get naked super fast. I'm just going to hop in the water. Here's the problem. I did not fully comprehend the temperature of the water. So I hop in the water and she's like faced this way. I hop right out of the water. I'm standing on top of our bathtub, covering myself up, going like this. And at that moment, she's just like, number one, she's like, what just happened? Number one. And number two, what are you doing? Like, we've been married for 7 years and you're over here going like, oh my God. And that's when I was just like, I had no idea that I was self-conscious. I had no idea that I didn't even want to do that. And now I'm not going to lie. I've been working on my fitness. I strut my stuff whenever I can. So
Good for you.
Just fine.
Well, I think actually, and we touched on it in the Exponential Relationship series on the TFP app and website, there's like vulnerability, intimacy, being naked together. Like, I know we made Salo super uncomfortable when he was recording that part of the series, but it really does create a stronger connection. Like when you sleep naked or when you're willing to be your complete vulnerable self and like, warts and all, like it really does build that intimacy between you. And so, that must have been a little bit scary for you in that moment. One, the actual moment, but two, that then realizing like, oh shoot, like I might have a little bit of work to do here so that I can be my full self with my wife, so that we don't have that sliver of a wall between us that has the potential to create a divide.
And I had no idea the wall had even started. until
Totally.
jumped into boiling water.
But it's such a cool example of noticing, like you, and it's why you guys have such a great relationship, is you notice that little thing that's there, and you're like, ooh, I don't like that. I have to do some work here. And you did it immediately in the moment and took down that wall. Whereas I think a lot of relationships where they get into trouble is that
They notice it.
They notice that, but they aren't willing to go there with themselves, and the wall gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you didn't allow that. So it's just really cool. It's a really cool example for people like me.
Have to have conversations. Anytime you sense that red flag pop up in your relationship and something's not driving or something's not right, like you need to talk about it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like sweeping it under the rug, like it's just going to fester in your head and build resentment and all these negative thoughts and feelings that just don't need to be there. And open communication really is everything.
And then you just start telling yourself stories, like
false narratives.
I think I did a couple podcasts on this, but I had to go through, like, I don't know, I'd say a good like 4 months of the idea of acceptance, and not just acceptance of me, but acceptance of other people. Because I found myself like inviting people to things or saying, hey, do you want to work out? Or, hey, let's get together. And I wasn't getting a response, or people would cancel last minute, or they would always have something else. And so then I started telling myself, they don't want to hang out with you. You're not liked. You're not loved. You're not this. But maybe they're going through something. I just need to accept people's answer, and then I need to move on. And so I had to go through an acceptance of, instead of trying to make them fit into what I thought was happening, I just had to be like, oh, cool, that's where they're at. And I think that that's a really important thing for people to go through. Is acceptance of wherever someone else is at. Because we're always trying to get people to accept where we're at. But, there's just so many times where when someone will give me a piece of information and then I'll get mad, or I'll feel some type of way, or I invent these stories, or I stew on it, and then cynicism comes and resentment comes. And one of the things I ask people all the time is I say, like, look, you're never going to get a positive result from a negative thought. So if you have a negative thought, you should do one of two things with it. Let it go, which is usually what you need to do because you're probably wrong, or go talk to the person. If it's a real problem, talk to the person. And so I think we're really good about that, is if she tells me something, even if I don't like it, I'm really good about, okay, do I need more information? Do I have to go down this, or can I accept where she's at? And that helped me with her. It helped me with my friendships. It helped me with business partnerships. And I think that that's one thing, is just be more accepting of people. Again, even if you don't agree with them, who cares? Why do they need to agree with you? And why do you need to agree with them? If that's their truth, if that's what's going on with them, come from a place of acceptance and understanding, and not trying to constantly stress yourself out by like, these people need to conform to my way of thinking. Like, that's stressful. Like,
it's destructive.
It's just,
and so it's destructive.
It is destructive of yourself and the relationship and the person. So I think that's
once I started shifting my mindset and being more accepting of things like that, like it changed everything for me. I felt so much more inner peace.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, well, just accept it and move on. Like, you can't control it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you said that, Kayla, because that's where my mind was going next, is like, we all as humans, I think, tell stories, right? Like, when there's a gap in information, we fill it. Like, it happens in the corporate world, it happens in your personal life, it happens everywhere. If you've got a gap in information, you fill it with your story. And we always come at things from our perspective, because we are the center of our own universe. We're the only ones who lived our experience. So our story is centered around us and our beliefs. And I think what we're all ultimately striving for, you could argue several things, peace, joy, happiness. But I think ultimately we're all seeking peace, right? Like, I think inside, around us, none of us want to live in the chaos. None of us want to live with the chaos and the resentment and that sort of negativity inside. And the way we get there, I think all comes down to our beliefs. And Greg, you really briefly in the first part of this episode on the TFP podcast around like the truth is somewhere in the middle. Like I have a truth, you have a truth. There's multiple truths that exist. And sometimes when we're trying to seek the truth, and the truth is an absolute and it's an ultimate, and it's like not necessarily. We all have different truths, and we can choose to believe the best story. We can choose to believe in that gap in information that exists in the story that we tell ourselves. We can choose to believe something negative, something self-centered, something whatever, or we can choose to believe something positive. To your point, like, I don't know what they're dealing with. Maybe I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe I'll think of the absolute best possible version of this story in my head that gives me peace and power, and creates peace sort of in this relationship, because the other person doesn't necessarily know the story that you're telling, and they're telling a story. And so I think we all have the ability to create and maintain peace in our lives, and we don't always do it. Like, we have the choice to believe something that brings us peace, or we have the choice to believe something that brings us chaos or resentment or bitterness, and that stuff just festers. And it was a really difficult concept for me to wrap my head around at first, but I'm like, but there is a truth, but there is one sort of thing that is true. And it's like, no, I get to choose what I believe, and I can choose something that makes me stressed out, or I can choose something that brings me peace. And once I have peace, then like, everything becomes easier. And so I just thought it was a really powerful shift in my mindset over the last 6 to 12 months, that I get to decide what I tell myself, what I believe, what the story is. And that is what dictates my level of happiness, my level of peace, what I'm living with in my day-to-day life. And I just found it to be such a difficult, but once I made it like life-changing shift in my mindset, that I get to decide what I live in, what I accept, what I'm going to create around me.
Well, and I love, like, you have no idea how many times like you've actually coached me, because like I'll be like, grumpy or frustrated with something, and then it's like somehow like God's just like, oh, check out this like little thing that Meredith's talking about, and inevitably it's where you're like, well, what's the best that can happen? You're like, I just started saying what's the best that can happen, and you have no idea how many times that's shown up for me at the perfect time. So
that's such a good question.
Like, and what? Who the hell made it? What's the worst that can happen? Why is that what we started with?
Negative programming from when we were born, right? Like scared and fearful, and the victim mentality and all of that. That's
Well, and our brains naturally go to worst case scenario. And I'm sure it's like biological, evolutionary. I'm sure all that is part of it. Our brains automatically go, what's the worst? What's the worst that could happen? And so we don't need to consciously ask ourselves that question, because our brains are going to go there by default.
Yeah. Our brains got that covered.
Right? Yeah. If we can consciously flip it and literally, like to your point, what's the best that could happen, and start lining up all those proof points, because your beliefs really are just because of your reticular activating system and all the crazy smart things our brain does for us. It lines up the proof points either way. So you might as well ask yourself, what's the best that could happen, and start lining up all those stories and all those.
And then and oftentimes those paths will appear. They start appearing. So
choose empowering thoughts.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. So before we get to the cliffhanger and answering that, we wanted to ask you guys, what does an exponential relationship mean to you?
Ooh, I like this.
That's a good one.
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
I'm thinking.
Does that mean I go?
You go first.
Okay. An exponential relationship for me means it kind of circles around the movie A Knight's Tale for me. The whole idea in the movie is, a person can change their stars. And so they're put under these stars that basically, this is who you are. This is your family. This is your station in life. This is this. And I just remember, because I grew up so poor and I grew up in, an incredibly abusive environment in my family. I remember almost always consciously choosing the opposite of what I was being shown and taught. And I remember at a very early age, and I love my parents, but everyone's made mistakes. But I remember this very, very clearly. I was either 6 or 7, and my dad was like the captain of running away. Like, if we're gonna fight, like, we had a house in Laramie, we had a house in Centennial. If they fought, he goes to the house in Centennial, and he was getting ready to leave. And my mom is a handful, to say the least. I love her, but she's not innocent in these things. But I remember they're in this huge fight. Plates have been broken. Plates have been thrown. My dad's getting ready to walk out the door. My mom gets pissed off, grabs a frying pan, hits him in the back of the head. He turns around, punches her in the face, knocks her out. I start uncontrollably crying. And I remember it was at that moment, whatever that anchor was for me, I said, I will always choose a different path than this one. Unfortunately, a lot of people are born in that circumstance. They're born under those stars. So it self-perpetuates to where that kid becomes either the victim or the villain or some combination. And I just always remembered, I want to choose love, and I want to find a way to be an example of what a relationship can be. And so an exponential relationship is actually not necessarily internal. Believe it or not, in my brain, it's much more external, because an exponential relationship is one that is an example that doesn't shame, that empowers people to say, I think I can do that, instead of the must be nice, instead of the, oh, it's because they're different. I want them to understand that, at so many levels, love is just love. And if you choose love, you're basically always going to win. And when Cayla and I are, loving on each other, it's going to show Conrad how he should be a man to his wife. It's going to show him how to treat a woman. It's going to show him how to, go do, like, it's exponential, because it's going to be the building blocks for how he is in a relationship. It's exponential because it's the building blocks for how Sallow's probably going to be in a relationship. And it's the building blocks for, our future, and what we want to create. And, we really, really disagree with, I'm not going to name names, but there's one very specific couple that does couples coaching, and specifically the female will stand on stage and say, you have to fight in your relationship. Fighting is normal. If you don't fight, your relationship is broken. And if you don't fight, it's like all these things. And like, we're looking at each other and we're like, man, by their standards, we're extra messed up, because we've actually only had one fight ever. And it was on the first year anniversary of us dating. There was
a little bit of alcohol might have been involved.
A lot of bit of alcohol was involved. We don't even remember what we fought about.
We were thinking very clearly. Super
clearly. And again, we went through that tumultuous experience. And then we just said, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore.
It didn't feel right.
It just felt so like we are not, that's not who we are. Mm-hmm. And so an exponential relationship is one that, by how you treat each other and the example that you set for the world, inspires and empowers other people to try to do the same thing. And so it exponentially has this ripple effect of making a better ecosystem in the home life balance.
Honestly, I'm sitting here listening to Greg and I'm just like, yes. Yeah. I wholeheartedly feel the exact same way about an exponential relationship. The only single word I will add that kind of goes the final percent. Yes, is it turns it into a legacy.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Generational legacy. I love that. Yeah. That's awesome.
That's a great answer. And I feel that, like, I felt that because that's how you described how I feel in this relationship. Like, I feel empowered. I feel like we have the opportunity and the ability to be role models and inspire. And so, like, I really felt your definition of exponential relationship. So I really enjoyed that answer.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's why we've been able to become such friends, is because we speak a very similar language in how a relationship is. And I can't remember, it was within the last couple months. It was at one of the not Denver regionals. It was at one of the regional trainings for Renatas, and someone who had also come to a TFP event that knows you guys was at a regional event. And when I was standing on stage, I was talking about how, I miss my wife and this, that, and the other. And then they responded with, not everyone can have a relationship like you and Cayla and Craig and Meredith. And I looked at them dead in the face on stage and I said, why not? Hey,
right. Why not?
Why not you? Of course you can.
I just said, why not? And they had never even thought of that response. When I said that, they were like, I mean, like, they literally, it was just like an immediate, like, they had no idea how to respond. It's just, and it's because they never made the decision that it could be them. Yeah. They just always thought they had to be how they were programmed. They always thought that they had to, be the version that their dad was, or their mom was, or whoever taught them what a relationship was. And it's just not true.
Like you said, I think, I don't remember where you said it, one of the retreats at some point, but you said it with love to a group of people, but you're not special. Like, the things that work for other people work for you. And so I feel that we're very special, but we're also not special. There's nothing, we don't have a secret ingredient. There's nothing magical. It feels magical, but because we do the work, like you said earlier, must be nice. It is because they're doing.
Because we did.
We did the must to have the nice.
Yeah, and it's not even like we did the must. We're doing the must every day.
And you do the must every day. That's the big thing. Is it's not like to have the marriage, like, oh, we have a marriage, we're done.
Totally.
No, you got tomorrow and the next day, and hopefully the next day and the next day, like
15 more years.
You have a marriage. Now the work begins.
Yeah.
Totally. And so it goes back to what you said, that we're not special. Everyone is capable of having a relationship like yours and like ours. It just takes work. And I know that not everyone likes to hear that, but it's totally worth the work. Totally worth it.
Well, and I think that's
every area of your life.
It's a cheat code for life.
It is a cheat code for life. And I think that's the other thing. Why I say, like, it's not special is, like, we get into the guru-ship where it's like, oh, I've got the 6 steps for this. I've got the, here's the 10 steps to being a millionaire. Who cares? Like, just get around some people. And this is why I always say the number one rule for marriage, for relationships, for communities, for whatever, you have to say yes, and then you have to stay yes. But most people, they say yes, and then they're looking for a reason to leave instead of a reason to stay. And they tell themselves stories, whether it's financial, it's emotional, it's time, it's distance, all these things come into it. And then they forget what is possible. And then they lose these exponential relationships, whether it's marriage, friendships, whatever. The other thing that I find in coaching is you'll watch people join a group, they don't do the work, they get mad at the group, they join another group, same thing. And then they end up, they're like a part of like 15 different groups, and they're mad at all of them. Not going deep.
Nothing works.
Yeah, they're all a scam. And and that's why like I love like some of the things that you guys say about your coaching program. Like, what if it really does work? Like, what if you can actually like fix your marriage? What if you actually, I don't know, did the work?
What would that mean for your life?
Yeah, how much does it change if you have there's a reason they say your significant other, because they're significantly important to everything. So what if you actually like had that special marriage? What if you actually like did the must to have the nice? The reason, until people change things to must, it's not going to change. As long as it's an option, or as long as it's maybe we could do this. Maybe I'll work on my marriage next month. I'm a little busy this month. Good luck with that. Don't kick your marriage down the road. You can kick a lot of things down the road. Do not kick your marriage down the road.
Because your marriage makes everything else harder, or everything else easier.
Everything. Absolutely agree.
And it comes back to what we talked about, the beliefs. Like, to your point, maybe I'll do it. What if it doesn't work for me? And what if it does? What's the best that could happen? Believe the story. Tell
right there. What's the best that can happen?
Right.
So good.
So should we circle back to the cliffhanger?
Yeah.
Yeah, give it to us.
Yes.
I want to know. I've been on a cliffhanger since the last episode, wanting to know what it was. I don't even know. I'm excited.
So let's recap. So you left us, you asked us the question, having left the corporate world, going into entrepreneurship and trying to figure out this life, was there a moment where you were like,
shit moment?
Was there a moment where you were like, oh shit, what did we do? Why did we do this? And the answer is, yeah, I think there's been several.
Well, I was gonna say, which one are you gonna pick?
I think there's been lots, but one that
You're like, are you talking about this morning?
yeah.
Actually, yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, but the one that I think stands out for me, and you can jump in any moment, but it was almost 2 years ago, like January 2022. So we're almost January 2024. So January 2022. So almost 2 years ago, we had left our corporate jobs, jumped out of the plane, no parachute. We're building it on the way down. We're trying to figure out what this life looks like, what we're going to do with our life. And we get this thought that like real estate, it's got to be real estate. Real estate is the vehicle that makes more millionaires than any other vehicle on planet Earth. It's got to be real estate. So we're going to jump into real estate full gear. And so we jump into real estate, we find the guru, we start the business, and we were in this business for what, 6 weeks? Not even
5, 6 weeks.
And we were like, holy crap, we're miserable. This sucks. What have we done? This is a nightmare.
And not like this is hard, push through it, like deep-seated, deep-rooted.
You don't want to do it.
It's a line.
I don't feel good with this.
Yeah. You're not.
You. That was not for you.
100%.
Yeah. So it was that moment, and we were both like every day getting up and doing all the work with this business, and like at some point we just like looked at each other and was like, did we just leave 6-figure jobs for the same basically misery, but like without the 6 figures? Like
that puts it into perspective.
That's part of the podcast series that needs to come out.
Yeah. So we had to like look at each other and be like, I'm miserable. Like, are you?
Like, are we impacting our relationship? Yeah. Like, we were snippy. We're both miserable, right? So that shows up together.
The frequency we were at, the energy we were at was just low. It was just like, so
And to put that in perspective, my first day not working my corporate job, January 1, 2022. So we're still in the first 30 days of not being in a corporate job that we're like,
oh shit. Did we really screwed this up? And it made us think, not only did we like make the wrong decision in getting into this real estate business, but did we screw up in leaving the security of what we had before?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that was
our first oh shit moment.
That was the biggest one that comes to mind for me.
But to your point, like when the 6 months later, when the severance income stopped coming, it's like, we haven't replaced it. Oh my God. It's been like,
we're gonna be homeless.
Because we had, we had said like, we didn't have a plan, right? Because we didn't have a plan, we also had dozens of plans. You make a plan, you scrap the plan, you make a plan, you scrap the plan. And so all of those plans got us to the point that we had replaced our corporate income within that, 6-8 month period of time. And then when we didn't, obviously, it was like, oh shit, oh my God, we made a mistake. Oh my God, and the whole house of cards comes crumbling down because, you're not where you thought you should be when you think you're supposed to. So the story you're telling yourself creates the stress, the chaos, the misery, the bitterness inside of you. And then there's been dozens of moments since then. Life gives you a little kick like it did a couple of days ago. We got a little kick and it was like, oh God. But then you're like, no, actually, that was the universe telling us we need to stay put and stabilize. And so finding the lesson in all of those oh shit moments and all those little kicks that the universe gives you, it's like, how badly do you want this? You say you want this. Do you really want it? Are you willing to work for it? What's the lesson? Find the lesson. Because I firmly now believe that those lessons, those are just the required steps along the way. To your point, yellow binder, if the last page says you have to learn these 15 lessons to live the life of your dreams, how fast do you want to find all those lessons and live the life of your dreams? You're looking for those things now. And so it's all about how you present it to yourself. And so there's been a lot of oh shit moments over the last 2 years, but I mean, we needed every single one of them or we wouldn't be here. So we eventually found our way.
I think I think one of the things that happened in there is when you guys start, putting out all the different books that you guys are going to do, which I know is inevitable. One of the things that I thought you were going to say, and then it completed in my head, and then I thought about it, and I'm like, ooh, that'd be a good book title. It says, "We didn't have a plan, but we had each other."
Yeah.
Because
that's good.
Like literally, that's how you guys operate. You guys are so good at operating that way, and it always works out. And it works out exactly the way that it should work out. And I know Brian will be mad that we used the should word because should's a shame word. However, in this case, it's in a positive thing because you're becoming who you need to be. And, I remember when we first started, we were talking about, okay, like coaching practice, like, Meredith over here, Craig over here, and then sometimes together, and then this, and then you guys just like looked at each other one day. And it's just like, yeah, but like, why anything not together? Like, I feel like let's just do it together. And it's just like, we didn't have a plan, but man, we had each other. And watching all of those moments in you guys it's been great for us.
It's so fun to watch you guys operate. You're just amazing.
Yeah. I love who you are in the world, how you are in the world. And that's why, on my podcast, when I was helping people understand how much admiration and respect I have for you guys. It's very, very real. And it's from specific experience and interaction. It's not like, oh, I had these clients and like, cool, I want to like give them a little nudge. It's like, no, like I love you guys, and I'm so happy that this industry gets to experience people who care, because you guys care at a level that unfortunately is really rare. We're losing compassion in humanity. And the way you show up in the world, whether you're at the grocery store to help people out, whether you're in our community helping people out, your community helping people out, or the couples, the underlying thing is caring, and that's stemming from how you care about each other. And it's just, you are an exponential relationship, and it's fun to watch. And like, I love the fact that you guys were courageous enough to take on that, because I know it comes from a deep place of caring. And that's why it's just, because so many people would talk to Cayla and myself about couples coaching. We're just, it got so hard that we were just like, we can't do it. We just, so the fact that you guys take that yoke and are plowing that field and helping people get to these exponential relationships and find the possible behind the marriage. It's so many people, I love what Craig just said. He said, well, okay, cool. You're married. Now the work begins. The work wasn't to get married. That's actually way easier than what comes next. Yeah. So, it's so much easier with a guide, and specifically a guide that it's not theory based. It's a guide where you look at their marriage and it's like, what? Obviously. And I love watching you guys explore life, explore each other. It's like every time I talk to you guys, you're on some new crazy diet. Well, we're trying Wild Fit, and I can have berries for like these 16 minutes. It's just like, you guys are such great explorers of humanity, and people, the world needs more of you. So it's
great energy. Like, energy doesn't lie, and you guys always bring such a special, positive, joyful, awesome energy. Yeah, and it's infectious. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's the truth. And
that goes double for you guys as well. Like, it's what's it been, 2 years?
Yep.
The last 2 years, getting to know you guys has been amazing. It's just been an honor to.
Well, it's changed our lives.
Yeah,
completely.
and to watch you guys grow as well. Like, it's just really cool to have a front row seat to it, and to experience it together and go through life with such amazing people and relationships that they do it the right way. They're going through life the right way and trying to make the world a better place. So it's just, it's been an absolute honor.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We just, I don't co-sign people, unless I have a look under the hood, and knowing the under your business, and even more important, I can't remember if I said it on this one or the other one, but just the fact that, you guys have seen me at my best and my worst, and you've been such incredible friends, and allowing me to have a safe space and to be vulnerable. It's hard for, cause traveling, and I'm on all the time, and it's a refreshing thing to have people. And I don't think that people understand how strong you have to be around someone who is always on when they turn off. So when that person turns off, and I tell Cayla this all the time, because I say, how strong do you have to be if everyone's leaning on me, and you're one of the only people I lean on? And now I have you guys in my life, because I've leaned on you guys as well. I've bounced ideas off of you. I've talked to you about feelings that I've had about basically everything.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that final percent relationship to where I'm not keeping something in reserve, and being able to be vulnerable. And unfortunately, just to maybe not wrap this up in the prettiest bow, but yes, vulnerability is a superpower. However, you do still need to be kind of picky and choosy on who you are vulnerable with, because I've unfortunately been vulnerable, and that's why I got so guarded for so long, because I was vulnerable with the wrong people that really used it against me, or when I opened up, they twisted the knife. And when you're vulnerable, and going back to the spouse, when you're vulnerable with your spouse, you know, that's such a pure thing. You know, going back to the beginning of this episode, you guys talked about trust. And I think, or maybe that was the beginning of the other one, they're meshing. But trust is important. And trust, you know, I said that the most important thing for me is not the truth. It's respecting where the other person's truth is, but specifically honesty and loyalty. And if you think about it, if you smash honesty and loyalty together, it kind of sounds like trust.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would just say from me to you guys, thank you guys for becoming some of my best friends and providing me a freaking safe place to not have to be on all the time. Sometimes when I'm just like, hey, I'm just a dude kind of going through it that's freaking out a little bit. Can I have a hug?
Mhm.
Always opening your arms and giving me that hug. It's
For
been
20 seconds.
Yeah, literally.
Yes.
If you guys don't know, the hug needs to last 20 seconds to get the full benefits.
That's an exponential hug.
Yep.
That's an exponential hug.
Great line, David.
Get that oxytocin
That's right.
Yeah.
flowing.
It gives you a sense of belonging. You don't have to
Yeah.
fit in.
Well, that's awesome, guys. So we so appreciate you guys. And one thing you said there I thought was really cool is that we all need those final percent relationships on our road of life. So
Yeah.
it's
Final percent.
Now we got the pretty
Yeah.
bow. We wrapped that with a bow. That was
there you
good.
go.
Very well done, Bennett.
So thank you guys so much for being on. And that's it for this episode of the Road of Life podcast. We'll catch you next time.